are live. It's Ring the Bell podcast number 16. I'm here with my co-host Nathan. How are you, bro?
I'm all right. How are you?
I am pretty good, man. Good little weekend's action of boxing this was. Some good fights, some interesting outcomes, some unexpected outcomes. We're going to start with the UK card, which was the Selby Josh Warrington card. There were some all right fights lower down the card on this one. O'Hara Davis won on points. Easy win against Ahmed Ibrahim. A good comeback win, but nothing special. Let's see him step up into something decent. That's all I really have to say on that. It was just those kind of fights aren't going to teach him anything at this point in the game. Then we had Leon Woodstock, 10-0, fighting Edwin Tellers, 12-42-5. And so he won this one 8-0 as well. And, same thing goes for Leon Woodstock. They've got to really sort of look to step him up into some competitive fights. You can't be fighting guys who have lost 42 fights and only won 12. That's crazy. Yeah, there was a weird one. There was a weird one with the Nicola Adams Soledad del Valle Frias fight, because Nicola Adams got the knockout at 2 minutes 59 of the second round. But obviously women's boxing is only supposed to last 2 minutes a round. So one would question how she got the knockout so late and why there was the timekeeping error. But, I've always said women's boxing should be 3 minutes a round, so I'm happy about that.
Nicola Adams. I don't like her, to be honest, that much. She's good, but I just don't take it.
Yeah, she's not terrible. She's not as exciting as some of the other female fighters out there.
She's just turned pro too late, I think. That's all.
I think so too, but I think, good on her in some ways. She's getting easy wins. Hopefully she'll be fighting her ex-girlfriend soon. They're in the same weight division. Oh my God, let's not.
Their girlfriend has run off with a man, so
let's
fighting each other.
Let's not
move.
Even. Yeah, no comment on that one. Darren Tetley versus Mason Cartwright. This was gory. Did you see this fight, Nathan?
I didn't know. I couldn't track down half the big fights.
Yeah, it's a problem sometimes. So
what happened?
Well, you should definitely go and look at Mason Cartwright's injury after the fight. His lip was like hanging off. His top lip was just like in a mad state. So it was a good scrap whilst it lasted. Mason Cartwright was actually boxing well at times, but he got caught, and he was downed in in round 8. And then he had this fucking nasty cut on his lip. I don't know I think it must have been a clash of heads, or I didn't really see the clash of heads, but I think it must have been, because the ref waved the doctors had a look at it and then the contest was waved off. And I think that's kind of fair enough, because if he'd have taken another punch to it, half of his face might have come off. Yeah, it's not pleasant. It weren't good. So, maybe they'll get a rematch of that fight, because it was a good fight and it ended in a weird way. So let's hope they get that rematch. I think both of them would be happy to do it. And I think, it was a good win for Darren Tetley despite the cut. But when a fight ends on such a drastic injury, there's always a hope of a rematch, really. So let's hope for that. Jack Catterall, this is another weird match.
One round, wasn't it?
Selby, I think it was over in the second round. No, it was over. No, you're right. It was over in the first round. It wasn't one round.
Terrible mismatch.
It was, but the reason it was over is Selby weighed 2 pounds over at the first attempt, but then he made weight because it was for a WBO Intercontinental title. But he suffered a dislocated shoulder in round 1 in the clinch. And so that's why the fight was over. And Jack Catterall wins, but he felt gutted. You could could see it on his face. So it was very peculiar. Who would you pick out of O'Hara Davis and Jack Catterall?
I'd have to say Catterall, just to be honest. It's probably an unpopular decision, but that's what I reckon from what I've seen of it.
Fair. So, from what I understand, O'Hara Davis is actually signed to fight Josh Lever next, and Josh Lever's a good fight. Josh Lever's 13-0.
Josh Lever's.
He's the guy who
very
beat. Yeah, he's the guy who beat Glenn Foote recently, and so
he's very underrated.
Yeah, I think it's a great fight. This actually, I think O'Hara Davis should win. He's got more power than Josh Lever, but Josh Lever could outbox O'Hara Davis, so we'll see.
O'Hara Davis needs to step it up now, really, doesn't he? He shouldn't be fighting at this level anymore, really.
I think, considering, he beat Tom Farrell, who was 13-0, and then he had this kind of fight for Frank Warren, who just, wanted to get him out quickly, I think, to keep him active. Yeah. So Josh Lever's not a terrible fight, really. If he was to fight Josh Lever and then Jack Catterall and then move on to European level, I wouldn't be too disappointed with that because they're good fights to watch. So
I don't think O'Hara is as talented as we all thought he was, is it?
He might. I don't know. We still need to see. If he demolishes Lever and Catterall, then possibly. Right. But he'd have to win.
Josh Taylor was a class above him,
100%, 100%. But obviously, Josh Taylor had far more amateur experience and far more amateur pedigree. So yeah, it's one of those ones where it's hard to say. O'Hara Davis, for my liking, O'Hara Davis could well be like James DeHale in that he lost early in his career to a top British guy who's going to go on to be world champion, and he could still be world champion himself.
It's just traits I see in O'Hara Davis that tells me he's not going to make it to the top. From some of his traits.
What are they?
The way he comes across, I know it sounds harsh, but something about him's not right.
I can understand what you mean, but there's a lot of boxers at the top that something about them isn't right. Look at Tyson Fury.
No, but what I mean is he doesn't look like when the going gets tough that O'Hara Davis has that mental stability like, say, Josh Taylor does or Luke Campbell does.
I kind of agree, especially with the manner of his defeat to Josh Taylor, but we'll have to wait and see. I still like O'Hara. I hope he can go on and do good things. But yeah, it's a good fight against Josh Lever. I'll definitely be interested in watching that. So, Jack Catterall got the win, but it's weird to see where he's going to go from here next. You'd expect if the winner of the O'Hara Davis Josh Lever fight is a great fight for Jack Catterall. So hopefully that can be made. Then we come on to our main event, and never have both of us been so unanimously wrong about a fight before. This was incredible. To be fair, Josh Warrington performed well out of his skin. I think that was Josh Warrington's best performance by a long way. He had the tactics perfect in the early rounds. He managed to negate Lee Selby's jab. He just looked very impressive in there. He looked more powerful. I do have to say that Lee Selby looked a bit drained at the weight. He didn't look like he had the power on his shots that he usually has. He's not known as a one-punch knockout artist by any means, but I was thinking Lee Selby would be the bigger, stronger man in there, but he looked a bit diminished. But that doesn't take anything away from Warrington, because even when Lee Selby was boxing, Warrington was picking up rounds. So you've got to give Josh Warrington all the credit in the world. It was such a close fight that I do think Lee Selby probably deserves a rematch. We're talking 115, 113, 115, 113.
Yeah. I think he'll look at moving up, to be honest.
I would agree. I think he should move up, but at the same time, if he's got a rematch clause, it's a big money fight again. It'll probably sell even more tickets this time.
This is again, it's
it is That is true. It's not a good fight to lose again, but at the same time, you wouldn't think he would. He wouldn't be looking at it like that. You know, fighters have a weird mentality.
I think you'd win the rematch.
I think he can. That's what I'm saying. I don't think. Look, Josh Warrington was great on the night, but I don't think the best Lee Selby gets beaten by the best Josh Warrington. No, not at all. And so I do think a rematch is fair because even look, Lee Selby probably has a rematch clause in the contract anyway. If it was an IBF mandatory, I believe. And so I think there is a rematch clause. I'm not 100%.
I'm just pissed off that I got the prediction wrong.
Well, I think more than half, I think 90% of the boxing world, other than Leeds fans, got this prediction wrong, to be fair. Look, Josh Warrington hadn't shown us anything in the past that would lead us to believe he was going to be able to do that on the big stage. But he did. And so I got to give him a lot of credit. I would think the fight will be close. Even if Lee Selby can win a rematch, I think it will be closer now than I thought it was going to be. But I do think, Frank Warren's going to try and skip that rematch. If there's no rematch clause, we won't see a rematch. We will see Warrington shipped out to Frampton pretty fast because Warren wants that big payday money. I think they should do that fight at Leeds, though, because I don't know if you noticed this, but whenever they did an aerial shot of the stadium, it looked half fucking empty.
I did see that, yeah.
It's not a good look for TV. But I think if you brought Carl Frampton over, you'd fill out Elland Road easily.
You'd pick Frampton to beat Warrington, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, I would, but I now think it's a closer fight than I thought before. I'd
beat Warrington.
Not on his recent performances, no. I think it's a good fight. I think Warrington would nick it because I
still think Selby will go on and win the world title. I don't think Warrington will keep that belt long.
I think if there's a rematch clause, I do think I would have to pick Selby again. But like I say, I Warrington as much as I did before, and I think
we didn't rate him before this fight. We rated him, but we said he was upper European, lower world level.
To be fair, that's what he'd shown us. He'd never shown anything that but here's the other thing: he'd never needed to show world-class skills before. But he looked world-class in there at times. He was following up his punches. His combos were good. He was beating Selby, the much taller man, to the jab at times. He looked real good in there. So, I take nothing away from him at all. It was a great fight. I just wonder if he fought the best Lee Selby. That's kind of the only...
I think he did. Weight drained and eye due to clash of heads makes the world of difference.
It kind of does, and I don't know if you saw, but the cornerman's work on that cut was atrocious. I think they made it worse between rounds 3 and 4, and then rounds 5 and 6. I think the corner actually made it worse rather than better. So, there's that.
Hard to believe that Warrington's unbeaten, isn't it? Really, when you look at it, really.
No. He's just been built really well.
Thanks to Eddie Hearn.
Yeah, a lot. But also Frank Warren hasn't done badly either. Didn't Frank Warren have him fight Kiko Martinez?
Yeah, who's a decent fighter.
Yeah, and that's what got him sort of highly rated for this IBF fight, I believe. So Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn both did a good job building him the right way. He's got a big name in Leeds there. They did sell a lot of tickets. I don't want to bash their sales. I know they did a lot of tickets, but I wonder I can see why Eddie Hearn doesn't do many shows at football stadiums. Because if you don't sell it out, it looks a bit shit on TV.
Is it 40,000 in Elland Road, isn't it? Yeah.
No, it's more than that.
And they couldn't even fill the stadium.
So they had 38,000. So the seating stadium capacity is 37,000, but they had like 38,000 in there. But the problem is that you've got 10,000 or so people on the pitch, and so one of the stands just looked empty. And it's not a real big problem, but it just doesn't look super professional. There's something about it that translates badly to TV. When you see Wembley and it's full with 90,000, that looks great. Yeah. Even Sheffield, it had like one half of an empty stand, but they put this big banner over it to make it kind of hidden. And so I think they could have done something like that. But, you know, it's not a big problem. I'm just sort of pointing it out.
I don't see Warrington beating any of the title holders. I really don't.
At that weight class.
Not Gary Russell. Not that weight class.
Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? It's a hard one. I don't particularly either. But he is now in the top. It is weird. He's ranked 6th in the world, but he's got a world title. Can he beat Santa Cruz? No. Can he beat Frampton? Possibly. If Frampton has aged and his new trainer and the legal issues all catch up to Frampton and cause him to have a shit night, possibly. But that's a lot of ifs. Can he beat Gary Russell Jr.? Probably not. Can he beat Abner Mares? Possibly. That's a good fight. But Abner Mares isn't champion right now. He'd have to beat Santa Cruz. Could he beat Oscar Valdez?
No.
Not really. Not really, no. Not after watching what Oscar Valdez did to Scott Quigg. So, no, I agree with you. He's got a problem in terms of he's going to have to pick guys for defences rather than jump in at the deep end and try and unify. Maybe if he could catch Carl Frampton at the right time. Do you know what I mean? Like if Carl Frampton has one more fight, gets a bit older, if it looks like he's going to lose his court battle, he might get depressed, have a bad training camp, and then Warrington beats him easy. But I don't think so. I think that's unlikely. But yeah, interesting stuff nonetheless. Let us move on to the American card. I'll talk about the card, but nothing decent happened on it. Kane Herron versus Ivan Alvarez. Oscar Rivas, he's the only decent prospect I cared about on the card. He beat Herve Hubo, not someone I've heard of. Mikhail Zuski won against Diego Gonzalez Luque. And none of those fights were really fights anyone gave a shit about. The only fight anyone gave a shit about was Badu Jack Stevenson. How did you see this fight?
I had Badu Jack winning the fight. I think he won it by a round. I think it was that close he won.
So I don't argue too much with the draw. I can understand it. However, I agreed with Jesse Reyes, the judge who gave it 115, 113 to Jack. Jack keeps getting screwed on these draws, doesn't he? He doesn't have a lot of luck. A fight that it looks like he's going to win, and he gets handed a draw. It's kind of bullshit. James DeHale fight. I felt that James DeHale
lost that. Good.
We have a slightly different opinion on that. I actually felt James DeHale did enough to win it or get a draw. I actually felt that fight was close to a draw. But the other fight, Marco Antonio Periban, that was not a draw. Jack won that fight, in my opinion. And this fight as well, it's kind of bullshit.
How the hell did you lose to Periban? Get a draw. That was a weird situation, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was odd. That was odd. So Badu Jack looked good in a couple of the early rounds. This was a real good fight, though, overall. It was Stevenson showed me something in this fight. He does have some decent heart about him. He can take on, the big challenges. Shame he waited so long to do it in his career, but there were times in this fight where he looked great, and then there were times where Badu Jack came on strong. And so I can understand the draw. It was very back and forth, ebb and flow fight. But I just felt Badu Jack there were a couple of close rounds where Badu Jack sort of nicked them, managed to win them with clever shots through the guard, clever work up close, especially late on. But yeah, great fight. Obviously, that's going to be a rematch. Like, if you have a draw, I mean, well, Badu Jack and James DeHale didn't rematch, so maybe not. But I would hope we get to see a rematch of this. Adonis Stevenson, another 6 months of age.
He'll lose. I think Jack will get the rematch in America.
Yeah, win the rematch. I agree. Badu Jack's got another 6 months to build up into 175 a little bit more, because Adonis Stevenson did look bigger than him in there for sure.
Definitely.
But yeah, great fight. I had Badu Jack nicking it just. I can understand the draw, especially in Canada. Like, if you win a fight 7-5 in Canada, you probably drew. Do you know, like it's one of those things where if you win by 1 round, that's not enough in the champion's back garden. So I can kind of understand the draw. I do hope we get a rematch. Great fight. I'll probably be one of the fights of the year, that fight, just because of one guy came strong, then it was a real good ebb and flow matchup. Parts of it were fought at range when Badu Jack was trying to control with the jab. Other parts were fought in a phone booth, so it really had everything apart from knockdowns.
I thought the first 6 rounds, or the first 5 rounds, were really won by Stevenson. Stevenson was stalking him, and he was backing him. Jack was cautious, but then he left it too late, didn't he? I mean, if he'd started it around early, he would have definitely got that decision.
The thing is, I agree and disagree. I actually think even though he was fighting on the back foot for some of the first 6 rounds, he probably still did win 1 or 2 of those rounds. And so, no, I think he timed it. Yeah, you're probably right. He timed it 1 round too late to start coming on strong. Because if you look at Stevenson in round 12, he is done. He couldn't even lift his arms to celebrate at the end of the fight. So, yeah, you're possibly right. If he'd have timed it, I feel like he timed it very well. And it
1 round too late.
Yeah, I think like he did time it well. And it looked like in rounds 7, 8, and 9, like he'd timed it perfectly and that he was going to take over. But Adonis Stevenson had a really good round 10, possibly, I can't remember if it was round 11 as well. And so, yeah, in my opinion, it was just a great fight. I'm happy enough with the draw because it means we get to see it again. So, you know, that's a good outcome of the event. We will move on to Gary Russell Jr. versus Joseph Diaz. Now, I didn't have time to watch all of this fight. I watched the highlights of it. Some people were saying it was really close. Other people were saying it was quite wide to Gary Russell Jr. What were your thoughts on it?
I think, I don't know, it's a close fight.
Yeah. I've heard that.
Russell just did enough to nick it. Just enough to nick it.
Well, see, so the judges, one of the judges had it 115, 113, Dave Braslow. Dave Moretti had it 117, 111, and Nathan Palmer had it 117, 111. Now, from the highlights, I would agree with the judges that gave it wide, but the highlights are obviously biased to Gary Russell Jr. anyway, because he won the fight. So, you know, I can understand if people were saying it was a close fight. But to me, you know, Joseph Diaz is not a bad fighter. So to win a close fight against Joseph Diaz is it's no shame. It's Joseph Diaz's first loss.
I think he's going to get better as a result of this.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I don't think he has any shame. Even from watching the highlights, there were still good moments from him. I don't think he comes out of this fight with any shame. He's just been in a real close fight with a guy who a lot of people think is probably the best in the division since Loma moved up. A lot of people seem to think that. Yeah, good fight. I enjoyed it. I'll probably go and watch the full fight after we get done with the podcast, but the highlights were good. So, yeah, well done to Gary Russell Jr. A lot of people are saying they want to see him fight Lomachenko again. I don't really want to see that fight. I don't think there's any need for
Lomachenko will
it.
kill him.
It's a style mismatch. It's not that Gary Russell Jr. is a bad fighter. It's just that he has the wrong style to deal with Lomachenko, and he won't. The fight won't be any different than the first one. If anything, Lomachenko will make it easier.
Destroy him.
Yeah, that's what I think. Gary Russell Jr.'s got better since that loss, but Lomachenko's also got a lot better since that win. So, I don't see that fight as needing to happen again yet. Maybe in another year or two. Maybe. I didn't really watch any of the fights from this card. I couldn't really find many. I do want to go and watch Emmanuel Aline, but I don't really care too much. I'll try and find that fight. But what we do have to talk about, Tyson Fury's opponent has been named. And it is Sefer Seferi.
A career cruiserweight who's had one fight at heavyweight.
Yeah, and it was a loss, right?
To Manuel Charm points, and he didn't look great in the fight. But he's not a bad.
Yeah, it's not a great fight, but it is still probably better than what's his name, the big Scottish fella. It's probably a bit better than that. It's probably similar to that.
Yeah.
But no, who was this? Gary Cornish. It's probably still a better fight than Gary Cornish or Sam Sexton. Can you imagine if Tyson Fury beat up Sam Sexton just straight away after Fury beat him up? It would be awful. Yeah. And I had heard that name bandied about for this fight.
Oh, dear.
So thank God. Seferi holds a record of 23 wins, 24 fights, with 21 of his wins coming by knockout. So he does seem to carry some power. His single loss is against Manuel Char, as you said. It's not a lot to say for it. It's an okay comeback fight. It's a bit better than we thought, but
it's another cruiserweight.
It could have still been better than this, but it's not. It's not the worst.
He just needs to get a win. He just needs to get a win on his comeback.
100%. And I personally think he might be planning on fighting Tony Bellew because
it's easy money, isn't it, for him?
Sure, it's easy money, and also he's fighting a career cruiserweight who's moved up to heavyweight, and that sounds like Tony Bellew too. So he could be seeing this as sort of a warm-up fight for Tony Bellew.
How much would he get for fighting Bellew? He'd get the bulk of the money, wouldn't he? Or would Bellew?
No, you'd have to think that it would be sort of 60-40 to Fury.
Yeah.
But it would have to be. I don't think the fight can happen right now unless Eddie Hearn lets Bellew fight on BT pay-per-view. Then it can happen, and he might. Eddie Hearn might do that, but it's tricky to make this fight. As soon as Tyson Fury signed for Frank Warren, it made it much more difficult to do this fight because Bellew doesn't like Warren, does he? They had a big.
Not really, no.
They had a big falling. Like the reason he went to Eddie Hearn is because of like a big disagreement, if I remember correctly. So the idea that Bellew would be happy to go on Frank Warren's show, I don't even know about that. Maybe not.
The legal implications might be too nasty.
Yeah, it might. Yeah, I think they were in a court case against each other. So that's something we have to do a video about soon. Actually, Frank Warren's many legal battles against his former boxers. It'll be
all day.
That's why it'll be a good video. We can do an 8-hour stream on it. Oh, I think it's just started raining. Maybe not. Maybe not. So yeah, that's an okay fight. Now I wanted to take a quick look at BoxRec. because we have no show next week. I just wanted to inform people of that. There is no show next week because there is no real boxing happening next weekend. And so there's nothing for me and Nathan to talk about. It's a bit sad. It'll be the
We
first
may
time.
do some kind of a show. If I come up with some news, we may do a show.
Sure, we may
Later.
do. Yeah,
Later.
we will do. We probably will do a podcast to keep the content on the channel coming, so that there's not just a 2-week break. But we'll probably have to do it. Maybe we'll talk about Frank Warren's many legal dealings or something.
I'll come up with some subjects and
Yeah.
I'll have a look.
Yeah, for sure. But that being said, there is some amazing fights happening Friday the 25th and Saturday the 26th of this month. We have Jamie McDonnell going to America to fight Inoue. Oh, going to Japan, sorry, to fight Inoue. We have Yerwin Ancajas, who's the guy who beat the shit out of Jamie Conlon. He's going to be fighting Jonas Sultan, who's another Filipino guy. So it's kind of like a Philippine grudge match. That could be a good little war. David Lemieux, he's in a comeback fight against Karim Akur. Not really sure who Akur is, but it's good to see Lemieux back. Hopefully, Billy Joe Saunders hasn't trolled him into insanity. Khalid Yafai is fighting for his world title in America against David Carmona. It's not a bad little fight, that. And that's about it for the big fights. That's quite a lot, though. 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 pretty big fights. Not next weekend, but the weekend coming up. Oh, no, I'm wrong. I'm an idiot. I got my dates all confused. That is this weekend.
So there is what fights this that Inoue fight?
Yeah, Inoue, Lemieux, Yafai. Yeah, for some reason I thought that was next weekend. I've lost track of time. Lost track of time a little bit.
Yeah, we will have a podcast next week.
We will be doing a podcast next week on all of this crazy action. Yeah, my bad. There seems to be boxing pretty much every week for a long time now when I look at BoxRec's schedule. So, yeah, I will take all of that back. Don't listen to Luke. He's fucking crazy sometimes with his dates. And, yeah, we will be back next week to discuss some of this action. In fact, I very quickly wanted to bring up I saw a couple of things earlier that I wanted to talk about. I didn't save them, but I'm pretty sure I'll be able to find them quickly. Yeah, this was it. Jamie Munguia versus Liam Smith has been announced for...
Oh, dear. What's he doing?
July the 21st or 28th.
Oh, dear.
Well, it will be in California.
Oh, dear. I smell a disaster looming. Oh, dear.
I don't think Munguia is all that great. I don't know, but I don't rate Saddam Ali all that highly. So I think it's a good fight. I think Liam Smith should go over there. You know, we've got to remember his loss to Canelo. It is probable that Canelo was on PEDs at the time.
Yeah.
And so his only loss is to a potential drug cheat. And so I don't really blame Smith for taking this fight. He's number 1 in the rankings. So if he didn't take this fight, he wouldn't get a shot again for a long time. So he kind of has to take this fight, really.
Well, definitely. I mean, it's a tough fight, isn't it? I think.
It is a tough fight, but if you're in boxing to only win easy world titles, you're in the wrong sport. Look at what Josh Warrington's just done to Lee Selby. So,
Manuel Char did it.
He did. But my point remains is that's not. I don't think that's what the Smith family's about. Paul Smith went out and tried to beat Andre Ward. God love him. You know, he was never going to win that fight, but he gave it a good try. And I think the Smith, you know, look at the Stephen Smith. He's lost a few world title fights, but I don't think he cares. I think it's about the love of the sport for that family. So I can understand why he'd take this fight, and I think more power to him. We need to see more fights like McDonnell and Nue, Smith versus Munguia. It's great for British boxing to have our guys fight the best guys, win or lose. It doesn't really matter. If you're constantly out there fighting the best, you're going to get a lot of credit for that either way.
But Paul Smith has run out of. He still manages to have his 9 lives left.
Has he really been announced for another fight?
No, I'm wondering if he has.
Oh my god! I would a world title shot or some shit. I'd lose my fucking mind. Errol Spence is looking for the winner of Danny Garcia versus Sean Porter.
Not going to happen. Neither fighter will fight.
Probably true. Sean Porter might, but he probably won't beat Garcia. So
no, I don't see it.
That's a problem, and I don't think Garcia will fight Errol Spence. So I kind of agree with you on that. Yeah. So I don't know if you know this, but the guy that Eddie Hearn signed, Deryevchenko, is that his name?
Yeah.
He's been made the mandatory for the IBF title against Gennady Golovkin.
Oh dear.
That's incredible, though. But apparently Golovkin will vacate the IBF if they do force that fight.
Yeah.
Because they'd much rather rematch against Canelo. So, yeah, it's a weird one. But then it's interesting. This guy signs for Eddie Hearn, and then he's immediately made the IBF mandatory. It's quite funny, that, isn't it?
Shocking, isn't it? Shocking.
It's interesting. I'm not saying there's some sort of conspiracy or nothing, but yeah, it's a funny one. Adonis, something we do have to be fair to Adonis Stevenson. He did say he would give Badou Jack a rematch last night before Badou Jack even asked for one. So,
do you see Stevenson pulling a fast one and just retiring or vacating?
Possibly, but if he does, not really. I think he probably should, because the chances are in 6 months, Badou Jack will have put on. Yeah, Badou Jack will have put on more muscle. Stevenson will have got 6 months older, and so you'd think Badou Jack should win the next fight.
Fight for the vacant title instead. I think that will end up happening.
It's still probably a really good payday for Adonis Stevenson. And so you just wonder, has he done the right things with his money? Does he need to keep fighting? Some people need to keep fighting.
I think he's all right because he's made a fair bit of money.
Sure, but some boxers live paycheck to paycheck. They never save shit. They fight, they spend their fight check, they fight, they spend their fight check, and then they get stuck in that cycle. So you just never know. When you're fighting at 40, I'm already wondering, like, what have you done with your money if you're still fighting at 40? Obviously, Vladimir, it's a bit different. It's a bit different these days because you've got Vladimir, who was still very fit at 40, and Adonis doesn't look unfit at 40. So it is a bit different these days because people can stay fit for longer. But
to be honest, the fact that someone's fighting in their 40s is crazy generally anyway.
It is a bit. Yeah. He's not a heavyweight, is he? He's a light heavyweight.
I mean, Stevenson could have moved up, you know. He can't move up another weight division. He'd be too small. Would
he be too small at cruiserweight against someone like Bellew, though? He could.
No, I think he'd beat Bellew still.
I think that's a close fight. I think it's a close fight nowadays. I think
He won't take the fight, though. He won't fight Belly at heavyweight. There's no way he'd fight Belly again. I don't think he wants it.
I think he'd fight Bellew at cruiserweight. I think Jack's a harder fight than Bellew.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
So I think he would fight Bellew at cruiserweight if the money is huge.
Could you imagine if Johnny Stevenson fought David Hay? Oh, that would be brutal, wouldn't it?
David Hay? I hope not. I think David Hay's hopefully finished now.
But in David Hay's prime at cruiserweight, I mean, he would have beaten Adonis Stevenson in his prime.
100%. But yeah, 100%. Canelo Golovkin 2 likely to be at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas in September.
Is that fight definitely going to happen?
No, but it's likely to happen. Dan Raphael has said it is very likely. Yeah. So, also, did you hear about this thing about Pacquiao Matisse being postponed?
No. What's the reason for that?
Well, it hasn't actually been postponed. What happened was there were some rumors that it had to be postponed, but Manny Pacquiao has come out of training to deny the rumors that his July 15th fight against WBA welterweight champion Lucas Matisse is being postponed are totally untrue, and he believes it is the work of a saboteur. Pacquiao says the fight with Matisse is still on for the 15th of July at the Axiata Arena in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. The fight is supposed to be available on ESPN pay-per-view in the US. There's still no word how much the fight will be sold for on pay-per-view, but it's possible that it will be the regular pay-per-view price that we've been seeing in the US recently.
Oh,
the rumor
I'm not sure Pacquiao even wins this fight, I have to be honest.
No, Matisse is a banger and Pacquiao's aged now. I think it's a real dodgy. I think it's a real dodgy fight for Pacquiao to take. I think, but
Matisse would have lost to him in Pacquiao's prime.
100%. But Pacquiao's shot, he lost to Jeff Horn pretty convincingly, and so
you're saying that Matisse's not got a lot left either, really.
No, but and that's the thing. The last thing to leave an aging fighter is his power. And so you would have to think that he has the power to knock Pacquiao out, but Pacquiao probably doesn't have the speed and agility to outbox Matisse in the way that he would have been able to in the past. I still think Pacquiao will probably win this. I'm leaning to Pacquiao on points just, but I do think it's a risky fight. I think it's a good fight. You know, they're both old. The loser pretty much has to retire. So yeah, Pacquiao wants to think Pacquiao wants to thank the person that started the rumors of the postponement because he believes it will help make his fight with Matisse more of a success by creating more interest in the fight. Unfortunately, I think that's wishful thinking for Pacquiao. It's not likely going to create more interest from boxing fans. It's likely to do the opposite by making people concerned that the promotion of the event is shaky. Already things are different with this fight than in Pacquiao's previous fight. Freddie Roach is no longer training Pacquiao. He's been replaced by Boo Boy Fernandez, who has been working as an assistant trainer to Pacquiao for a long time. Additionally, Pacquiao's promotional company is taking the lead in promotions. Things are really different from Pacquiao's previous fights. He's coming off a loss from Jeff Horn last July. It will have been exactly 1 year since Pacquiao last fought by the time he enters the ring against Matisse. Considering that Pacquiao looks shot to pieces in the Horn fight, in terms of his physical skills, you'd have to believe that being out of the ring for 1 year will have not helped him anymore. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Pacquiao's, that's from boxingnews24.com. Shout out to them. They've always got good articles. Yeah, I'd have to agree with that take from Boxing News 24 that really Pacquiao's been out of the ring for a whole year now since the Horn loss. And so this is kind of like a goodbye retirement exhibition. I don't really think he's going to win this and then go and fight Lomachenko. I think that's fucking very unrealistic. I think Lomachenko at 140, if Pacquiao could even get down to 140, I think Lomachenko would bash him up badly. I don't think it would be pretty.
I think he'll get stopped, Pacquiao, and then that'll be the end. He should be retired anyway.
How old is he now? He's talking about fighters
38.
fight. Yeah, and that's very old for that weight class. Matisse is 35 as well, isn't he?
Yeah, but he hasn't had as tough a career. He's had a tough career, been in some wars.
But it's not the same as Pacquiao, who's gone up like 8 weight classes. I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
Which is ridiculous. Yeah. He started his career at the same weight as Ufai, didn't he?
Yeah, even lower. One weight class. He's won eight in 8 different weight classes. So I think one lower. Yeah, it's interesting. Whereas, you know, I think Matisse has only ever moved up like from lightweight to welterweight. So it's like
welterweight.
I think he was a lightweight right at the start of his career, but that's still like a normal, natural progression. Whereas Pacquiao's like fucking crazy. Pacquiao went up so fast between the divisions, and what that does to your body as you get older is definitely it takes a toll on your body. It's the same thing we've seen for David Haye. If you keep putting more and more weight on your bones and your ligaments, you can put muscle on there, but it doesn't mean your frame can support it. And so, yeah, I think Pacquiao's probably finished at this point. I do think he'll beat Matisse, but who knows? Depends what Matisse's got left.
If he does, he should retire on top. I mean, why is he still fighting? Surely he doesn't need the money.
No, he's definitely not one who needs the money. He's also a senator in the Philippines, so
makes no sense.
It's not like he needs the money at all. But I think the reason is that he signed a certain amount of fight deal with Bob Arum, and so Bob Arum basically owns his soul until Pacquiao finishes that number of fights.
So how many fights has he got left? About 2?
No, I believe this is the last one.
Well, he should just walk away from the sport, whatever happens.
Yeah. He might have one more afterwards. I think that's why Bob Arum is trying to make the Pacquiao-Lomachenko fight a thing.
Well, it's a bad fight for Pacquiao.
It's a bad fight for both of them. What does Lomachenko really get? If Pacquiao wins against Matisse and struggles and still looks old, what does Lomachenko really get out of beating him up? Nothing.
So you're trying to tell me he's going to jump 2 weight classes just to go up to welterweight?
No.
I know Pacquiao.
Pacquiao would meet him at 140 is the suggested rumor. But I'm not even sure. I know. I'm not even sure Pacquiao can do 140 anymore. That's the thing. And so, Lomachenko can't go up to 147. No way. He's too small.
Too small.
Mm.
He could win a title against a weak champion. I could see that happening.
But there are none.
Not right now.
Not right now, no. So it's very difficult.
Just go to 147 and fight Pacquiao. I know that would be ridiculous. That would be crazy. But, it could be done.
It could be, but it's not smart because then when he goes back down to 135, he'll struggle to make weight really hard.
Like Roy Jones Jr. did when he dropped back down from heavyweight.
Exactly. It's a crazy idea. It's not a good idea. The same thing for Kell Brook when he went up to 160 to fight Golovkin. It's not a good idea. 1 weight class, okay. 2, bad idea. Bad idea.
But the fact that he's already gone up, he's on his 3rd weight class already, is pretty amazing, isn't it? And in only 3 years.
Exactly. So you don't want to jump another 2 in one go. That'd be some crazy idea. But yeah, some great fights coming up next weekend. Ignore my previous ramblings about no good boxing or some bullshit, whatever I said. Some great fights next weekend. Have you got anything else you wanted to add for this week, bro?
What was I going to say? I just wanted to mention Joe Joyce about how far do you think he'll go?
Yeah, we can have a little chat about Joe Joyce. It depends, man. Can he beat Wilder? Probably not. Can he beat AJ? Maybe, but probably not. And
do you get the feeling he's in the wrong place at the wrong time?
Yeah, a little
Friday.
bit. Could he beat a fully fit Tyson Fury?
No.
Probably not. And so,
Could he beat Manuel Cha? Yes.
yes, he could. Can he beat Dillian White? Maybe, yeah.
But and one thing, should he leave David Hay? Yes.
No,
I think it's going to hold him back.
I disagree for the time being. I think if there comes a point where David Hay cannot get him good fights, yes. But so far, David Hay's got him the Commonwealth within 4 fights. And so you can't really say David Hay's done a bad job so far. He's done a pretty good job so far, I think. I can't hear you, bro.
I basically said, can you hear me?
Only just.
Say if we want to fight for the
WBA regular title, David Hay's not going to have the money to entice Manuel Shard to come over, is he?
Yeah,
You know, still things like
that. He probably will do, because he just lost to Tony Bellew, but he probably got paid a shit ton of money for that. And so you would think he has the money to build Joe Joyce into at least European champion, possibly world champion. I think David Hay's in a good position right now.
There's no way he's going to spend the majority of his purse a title bid for Joe Joyce, is there? I mean, really? Do you see that?
Possibly, if it's going to make money. Yes, I could see that. So it's hard to see who he has on his books at the moment, but I'm pretty sure he's got he's got a few guys. He's got Joe Joyce, Case Ashfaq, Michael Venom Page, the kickboxing champion, and Willie Hutchinson. So he's not got terrible fighters on his. You know, you can build a good undercard with that.
Willie Hutchinson's left, doesn't he? He's signed with Frank Warren.
Good point. But the point still stands that, you know, Hay can definitely get Joe Joyce back on Sky as well, because now that Sky's had him on, they might want to try and build that into a Dillian White fight. They might want to try and get
to the point where David Hay will have a fight, right? I'll explain the situation. He'll fight some guy like he did last time, and yet this time he'll put Joe Joyce as the main event and then himself on the undercard. That would make more sense, wouldn't it?
Possibly.
And then, you know, have a 4-rounder or something. I can imagine David Hay going having a little 6-rounder against some guy from Estonia or something, you know.
I can imagine David Hay having one last exhibition 10-rounder or something. Yeah. I can imagine
he couldn't headline it. He can't headline any more events while he's got Joe Joyce now.
No, I think it would be Joe Joyce versus a Hughie Fury for the British and the Commonwealth, and then David Hay
would put himself on the undercard against some.
David Hay would be like the main co-feature.
Would David Hay even beat Sam Sexton? You know, I'm being serious.
Not with a dodgy leg. No, probably not.
That's what I think.
Maybe he would. Sam Sexton would probably get knocked out, but that's only probably. You know, I don't want to see David Hay fight again. If he is fighting on some undercard somewhere, I probably wouldn't watch it. I'd skip it.
It was an embarrassing way for someone who was once a good fighter to go out like that, wasn't it? It wasn't nice to watch.
I mean, the same thing happened with
Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, but the same thing happens to so many boxers, man. That's why it's nice to see some guys retire on top, like Carl Froch.
Lennox Lewis, yeah.
Lennox Lewis, Carl Froch. I personally think, you know, if we look at what happened to who's the geezer that got knocked out by the Welsh guy? Was it Hopkins?
What way is it? Oh, Joe Kawasaki, you mean?
No.
Oh, God.
Let me check. It weren't. It was actually Roy Jones.
Oh yeah, that was it. Yeah, when he fought against Joe Kawasaki 10 years, he should have retired.
Hang on, no. I don't even mean that one. I mean when he lost to Enzo Macronelli.
Oh, that was embarrassing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
And then
he was shocked.
and then Enzo Macronelli went on to get knocked out in 1 round in the very next fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's embarrassing. That's
The
truly
stupid thing
embarrassing.
is,
Getting knocked
when
out,
Roy Jones
and then
lost
the guy who knocks,
Glenn Johnson
yeah,
in 2003, I remember watching it one night on the Sunday in 2003. And when he got knocked out, it was so brutally, he should have retired then.
I agree. It was bad. Didn't he also get knocked out by Antonio Tarver the next year as well? Yeah.
Yeah, and then he got knocked out by Dennis Ledebev in 2010.
Yeah, I remember that one. Jesus. But yeah, I think when you get knocked out by a guy and then that guy gets knocked out in his next fight, that's pretty embarrassing. Like and then I remember this, didn't he fight Roy Jones Jr.? He went on to fight like his fan.
Yeah, he fought some guy who was
debut. Yeah, Byron Phillips. Oh my God. Well, you gotta laugh, man. So yeah, there's some embarrassing bow-outs for top guys.
But he made a lot of money. He didn't need to keep boxing. He made millions.
I know, but people are crazy. I think people should learn from the likes of Roy Jones Jr., Enzo Macronelli, David Hay. Don't fight when you're past your best. Don't keep going into the ring. It's not worth it. It's not worth it.
I mean, look what happened to Ali.
Yeah, well, exactly. He should have been saved from himself, really, but there weren't.
He was too proud to be fair.
That's the thing. A lot of people are. I think that's the same for Roy Jones Jr. Try and tell him not to fight, and he'll just laugh at you, sort of thing. So it's a tricky one. But anyway, we will round it up for now, and we will be back next weekend to discuss Jamie McDonald in Niue, and some of the other big fights, Khalid Jafai and and Cass. So peace out, everyone. Have a good week. Catch you all soon.